They didn't just take my job. They tried to take everything. The late nights, the breakthrough, the thing I built from nothing but caffeine and stubbornness. And for a minute, they thought they could get away with it. But what they never expected was that I'd kept the receipts, and one of them had my name on it, in ink, with a filing date. My name's Ryan Keller. I'm 34, and until 2 weeks ago, I was a lead systems engineer at a mid-sized tech firm just outside Chicago. Not a flashy job, not the kind that makes headlines, but I liked the work. Building things that lasted, solving problems no one else could crack. I was good at it too, maybe too good. I wasn't the loudest guy in the room, but when something needed fixing or designing from scratch, I was usually the one they came to. Quiet trust, it meant something, or at least it used to. That morning started like any other. Got in around 7:15, poured the sludge they called coffee, and sat down to clear out emails before the day really started. That's when I saw the invite. A meeting at 9 a.m. with Darren, my manager, and someone from HR. No agenda. No context. Just that little red exclamation point next to it. High importance. My stomach sank. I'd been in this industry long enough to know what urgent HR meetings meant. Still, I held on to a sliver of denial. Maybe it was about a reorg. Maybe it was about the drone project. It was about the drone project. Just not in the way I hoped. The room was windowless, overly air-conditioned, and smelled faintly like whiteboard cleaner. Darren was already sitting when I walked in, looking like he'd practiced a script. Beside him sat Monica from HR, avoiding eye contact like she was reading a breakup note written by someone else. "We're making some difficult decisions today," Darren said, hands folded like a disappointed dad. "Unfortunately, your role is being eliminated as part of a broader shift in our organizational priorities." I let it sit for a second. I wanted to laugh. "Are you serious?" He did that fake sincere head tilt, like he was sad for me. "This isn't about your performance, Ryan. You've done great work. But leadership's decided to move in a different direction." My work, the great work he was referring to, was the energy optimization software I'd spent the last year refining. It was about to go into beta testing, the kind of system that could cut operational power costs by millions. And while Darren had attached his name to every memo about it, I was the one who had actually built the core. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the foundational algorithm wasn't the company's. It was mine, designed on my personal machine, on my own time. And 2 months ago, I'd filed a provisional patent in my name. Walking back to my desk felt like drifting through fog. People gave me tight, polite smiles, the kind you offer a man on the way out of a burning building. Word travels fast in offices like ours, even when no one says anything. I didn't bother sitting down, just grabbed my jacket, my old moleskin notebook, and the external drive I always kept locked in my drawer. Not the company-issued one. My personal one. I could practically hear Darren's voice in my head. All intellectual property created during employment belongs to the firm. That's true, if it's created under contract. But what I'd done, the part that mattered, came long before that. I had the timestamps, the version history, and, most importantly, the signed receipt from the U.S. Patent Office. Still, I played it cool. I walked out with a nod to the receptionist, the same way I had 1,000 mornings before. My hands were steady now. There was a strange calm in knowing what I knew, like having a royal flush in your pocket while someone else was bluffing their life away. But I also knew this wasn't over. Darren wasn't just greedy. He was arrogant. He didn't just want credit for my work. He wanted to erase the part where I ever existed. Over the next few days, I got radio silence. No follow-ups, no inquiries, not even a final goodbye email from the team. I assumed Darren told them to keep it clean, Probably pitched it as necessary downsizing in the Monday stand-up. But then on Friday, something strange happened. I got an email from a contact at a partner company, one of the vendors we'd worked with during early hardware testing. The subject line just said, "Congrats?" Inside was a link, a press release. My old firm had just signed a licensing deal with a major logistics giant to begin deploying the drone energy optimization system, the one I built. Darren had pitched it as the company's proprietary breakthrough, scalable, efficient, and ready to revolutionize airborne transport. I didn't feel anger at first. I felt cold, methodical. I reread the release 5 times, noting the language, the dates, the way they described the underlying technology. They had no idea, no clue that the backbone of their proprietary system was sitting under a provisional patent filed under Ryan Keller. Not Halberton. Not Darren. Me. I picked up the phone and called Angela, my patent attorney. I'd worked with her once before on a smaller software idea that never made it past prototyping. She answered on the second ring. "Ryan Keller, haven't heard from you in a while. What's going on?" I think," I said, "we might have a licensing issue on our hands." Angela didn't waste time. That's what I liked about her. She'd always had this sharp, clinical way of working, precise and no nonsense, like a surgeon with paperwork. Within 24 hours, she'd reviewed the provisional patent, traced the language in the press release, and compared it against the core logic I'd included in my original filing. Her voice was calm, but I could tell she was intrigued. "They're using your method almost verbatim," she said. "Your algorithm structure, your energy redistribution model, even the staggered feedback loop. That's all you. And because it's all documented in your provisional patent with dates preceding your company's official development timeline, it's enforceable." I exhaled slowly. I'd been holding my breath since the day they let me go. "So, what are we talking here? Lawsuit?" "Eventually, maybe," she said. "But I'd start with a cease and desist. Let them know you're aware of the infringement and are willing to discuss licensing terms before taking legal action. It puts you in a position of control, and frankly, it forces them to come to the table." It was surreal. Just days ago, I was sitting in a beige office being handed my walking papers by a guy who'd smiled through the whole thing. Now I had leverage and the documentation to back it up. The same company that discarded me like dead weight was about to stand knee-deep in legal exposure because they assumed I was too meek or too bitter to fight back. Angela drafted the letter that weekend. It was formal but firm. She attached an annotated comparison between the language in my patent and the release, highlighting every overlap. I reviewed it 3 times before we sent it. By Monday morning, it was sitting in Darren's inbox, and in the inbox of the company's in-house legal counsel. No threats, just a statement of fact. The technology being licensed was based on a protected intellectual property belonging to me, Ryan Keller, and I was open to negotiating fair licensing terms before escalating the matter. I didn't hear anything for 2 days. On Wednesday, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. I let it go to voicemail. Then I got a second one from Angela 10 minutes later. "They responded," she said. "They want a meeting. Video call. Tomorrow at noon." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Are they denying it? "Nope, not yet. But their tone tells me they're nervous." Good. I sat back in my kitchen chair, the same one I'd been using since I started working remotely during COVID. The same spot where I'd written half the original code that got me here. It wasn't a high-rise office. It wasn't a boardroom with glass walls and catered coffee. But it was mine. And for the first time since I got fired, I didn't feel small anymore. The call started exactly at noon. Angela and I joined 5 minutes early, just to be safe. She wore her usual blazer, expression unreadable, while I sat in my flannel shirt, back straight, face calm. My camera was on. I wanted them to see me, not as the guy they kicked out, but as the one who still held the key to the whole thing. The company's legal rep was a polished guy named Martin with that corporate sheen. Expensive haircut, tight smile, probably a law degree from Yale. Darren joined 2 minutes later, acting like it was just another status check. He gave a stiff nod when he saw me on screen. "Ryan," he said, "good to see you. Hope you're doing okay." I didn't answer. Angela spoke first. "Let's get to the point. You're currently promoting and preparing to monetize technology that directly infringes on a provisional patent filed by my client. As per the documentation we sent, the critical software elements at the core of your drone optimization system are demonstrably derived from Mr. Keller's independent work. If this is not resolved, we will move forward with legal action, including an injunction on deployment." Martin raised a hand, the kind of gesture lawyers use when they want to sound reasonable. "We've reviewed the materials, and we don't want this to escalate unnecessarily. Our team's open to discussing possible resolutions, including a licensing agreement, assuming we can come to mutually agreeable terms." Darren didn't say a word. His eyes kept flicking back and forth, probably calculating how much trouble he was in. He hadn't expected this. He thought I'd just go away, maybe badmouth the company on Glassdoor, but nothing serious. Now he was realizing that the asset he sold to investors and partners wasn't even legally his to sell. Angela was patient. She let them talk through their proposals, revenue share percentages, licensing fees, exclusivity periods. But she never lost control of the conversation. I admired that. She handled it like a chess game, not a brawl. She knew we were holding the queen. After an hour of back and forth, we wrapped the meeting. No deal yet, but enough groundwork laid to make one inevitable. When the call ended, Angela finally smiled. "They know you've got them," she said. "I could see it on Darren's face," I replied. "He looked like someone pulled the floor out from under him." "He thought he could erase you. Turns out you wrote your name into the foundation." I sat there for a moment after she logged off, letting it sink in. All the nights I'd questioned whether the patent filing was overkill, all the times I wondered if I was just being paranoid, every one of those instincts had been right. Darren didn't just underestimate me. He forgot I was the only one who truly understood the machine he built his promotion on. And now he'd have to pay to keep it running. The licensing deal took 3 weeks to finalize. 3 tense, oddly satisfying weeks. Angela handled the negotiations while I stayed mostly in the background, by design. I wasn't looking for revenge through headlines or lawsuits. I just wanted what was mine. Fair compensation, proper credit. And maybe, just maybe, a reminder to Darren that people like me, the quiet ones, the builders, shouldn't be underestimated. The final agreement was better than I expected. A 6-figure upfront licensing fee, followed by a revenue share percentage that scaled with deployment. No exclusivity clause, which meant I was free to license the same tech to competitors down the road. Angela made sure of that. She even included a clause that required the company to publicly acknowledge the algorithm as developed independently by Ryan Keller, licensed for commercial use. That line hit harder than any courtroom verdict. Darren never reached out personally. No apology, no email, not even a passive-aggressive text. I think part of him hoped if he stayed silent long enough, I'd disappear again. But he didn't get that luxury. My name was now attached to every drone powered by that system, every press release, every deployment contract, every investor update. They'd all have to mention me. And once word got out, something interesting happened. People started calling, old colleagues, startup founders, even a couple of venture capital guys who had seen the licensing news and were impressed with my foresight. One of them asked if I'd ever considered spinning off a new firm to build out the next generation of energy optimization systems. I hadn't, not seriously. but now I couldn't stop thinking about it. For the first time in years, I had options. Real ones. I started sketching ideas again. Not because someone asked, not because a manager was breathing down my neck, but because I wanted to. There's a strange freedom in realizing you're not just someone's employee anymore. You're the product, the brains, the value. All those years I spent sitting in meetings, biting my tongue while middle managers took credit. I wasn't stuck there anymore. One afternoon, I got coffee with Emily Tran, one of the only managers at the company I actually respected. She'd left 6 months before I was fired, burned out by the politics. We sat at a quiet table by the window, talking shop like we used to. "I heard what happened," she said. "You always were the smartest guy in the room. I'm glad you finally made them see it." I shrugged. Took getting kicked out to realize I was building someone else's dream. "And now?" she asked. I looked down at the sketch pad in my bag, the rough outline of a new energy routing protocol I'd been tinkering with. Now I'm building mine. 6 months later, I signed my first independent contract. It wasn't with a tech giant or a flashy drone startup. It was a Midwestern logistics company looking to reduce fuel costs for their hybrid truck fleet. They'd read about the licensing deal, done their research, and reached out directly. The guy who called me said, "We want to work with the guy who actually built the tech, not the one who slapped his name on it." That line stuck with me. It reminded me that reputation isn't about volume. It's about truth. And truth has a way of floating to the surface when you give it time. I launched my own consultancy. Small, lean, no fancy name, just Ryan KELLER Systems. I worked from my home office at first, then moved into a co-working space downtown once I signed my second and third contracts. Word got around. A few engineers I'd mentored reached out, asking if I needed help. I brought 2 of them on as contractors. We weren't changing the world overnight, but we were building something real, on our terms. As for Darren, I heard through the grapevine that he got moved into a strategic advisory role after an internal review. Translation: sidelined. I wasn't surprised. When the only thing you have going for you is other people's work, it's only a matter of time before the spotlight turns cold. I didn't hate him. I didn't even think about him much anymore. He was a chapter, not the story. The story was this. I got fired. They tried to take what I built, but I didn't let them. Because I'd learned something in those years of quiet effort and late-night coding sessions, something that no layoff notice could erase. Real value doesn't come from the company name on your badge. It comes from what you build, what you protect, and what you believe in enough to put your name on. Mine was on the patent, and now it's on the door,